Welcome to Vox. Hello, everybody. And I will wait for the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Here we go. Okay. Vox values. We know we've been doing this since we started, and we still are trying to follow these. The church exists to love and serve the world, not stand in judgment of it. The church should be the safest place to talk about anything, and the church should captivate the hearts and minds of the next generation. So our verse is Song of Solomon, 2:8 through 13 from the Hebrew Bible, and I'm going to guess that's Jonathan, maybe. I'm not sure, or Johann.
That's my.
Good morning, everyone.
There we go.
Song of Songs. Hark, my beloved, there he comes, leaping over mountains, bounding over hills. My beloved is like a gazelle, or yet like a young stag. There he stands behind our wall, gazing through the window. Peering through the lattice, my beloved spoke thus to me, Arise, my darling, my fair one, come away. For now the winter is past, the rains are over and gone, the blossoms have appeared in the land, the time of pruning has come. The song of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The green figs form on the fig tree, the vines in blossom give off fragrance. Arise, my darling, my fair one, come away.
Thank you, Jonathan. And now what's happening at Vox? And we have quite a few birthdays this month. And of course, first birthday, America turned 250 yesterday. So we'll have to acknowledge that. On the second, Dee Dee Hunter had her birthday. Carol Chambers is coming up quickly on the 9th. Susan Munson on the 17th. Adam Steffen on the 12th. And Janelle Reyes, I guess, is on the 28th. Happy birthday to all of you this month. And upcoming Sundays on July 12th, next Sunday, the Kirshners at the Chambers and on Zoom. The 19th, all virtual, again with Bonnie. And then on the 26th, Tim Gombas will be teaching on Romans at 10 a.m. at the Olsons and on Zoom. Okay, and now we get ready for communion. So if you don't have your elements, now's the time to grab something. And we come to the table to meet with Jesus. It's the most compelling invitation ever offered. You're invited with your questions and doubts, with your hang-ups and screw-ups, with your addictions and brokenness. The table is for you. The bread and the cup, they're for you. Thank you, Stella. That was great. Okay, now we have our second reading. New King James Version. I don't know for sure who's reading, so take it away, whoever.
Carol, lady.
Carol. Okay, great.
The voice of my beloved. Behold, he comes leaping upon the mountains, skipping upon the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Behold, he stands behind our wall. He's looking through the windows, gazing through the lattice. My beloved spoke and said to me, Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away, for lo, the winter is past. The rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth. The time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree puts forth her green figs, and the vines with the tender grapes give a good smell. Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away.
Thank you, Carol. And now, time for our speaker, Bonnie. And Bonnie, I have, since we always ask a question to the speaker, I have two questions.
Okay.
One is, since yesterday was a holiday, do you have a favorite holiday?
Yes, I love Halloween. It's my favorite
Halloween,
holiday.
okay.
I love to see all the kids dressed up, like everybody. I love that. I love fall, so that's nice. And then I also love when like once everybody goes to bed to watch Hocus
Right.
Pocus, which is one of my favorite movies. So I love
Oh,
Halloween.
this this is a follow-up for that, and you kind of answered it a little bit, I think, with your Marilyn and I were talking about this morning, but what do you like better about holidays? Do you kind of remember a time when you were doing it, or do you look at your kids through them? What's your favorite of the two? I mean, or are they both?
Yeah, I think it's hard. Like that nostalgia is really strong, right?
Right.
To want to like recreate it. But that's an interesting question you ask because I kind of well, I cried over bagels yesterday morning because I was like, these holidays are getting to be too much. Like I feel like I came from a very normal family in that it wasn't a huge deal. It was different, but it wasn't like this massive undertaking. And I don't know
Right.
how it happened, but it's like I took those really good things, my husband took those good things, and we've made it these big productions. And so I said it was like from now on, we're doing a year of holidays that are chill. So I feel like it's a thing of it's a both, right? I really like the nostalgia. I like seeing my kids experience it, but I also feel that we've lost our way and they've become like the bar just keeps getting higher, and I'm like, this isn't sustainable and we can't do that. So we're gonna go chill. So maybe in a year I'll have a different answer for you. I don't even think that answered your question.
Like that answer actually, and I totally understand it because I feel like we've sort of done that too, and we're finally kind of saying we got to chill. Like Christmas, especially for us, has been gets to be too much,
Yes.
sometimes.
I think so too. And also, there's like a ton of crap that nobody uses later. So I
Right.
said this year we should go on a trip, and the present is the trip. That's what the presents are. That's it. And my kids are kind of revolting, but I think we're going to do it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Whenever my kids have a complaint, like about something that we've decided, I just always say, you know what's so great is that when you're a parent, you can do whatever you want. I can't wait to see that. That's what I always say.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm so happy. I missed you guys last month, and we'll get to make up for it this month, which is very exciting. But I'm really happy to be here. And I wanted to, as you know, we're kind of in the middle of this series that I just made called Is God Non-Binary? And so the next place we're heading is kind of talking about we talked about the masculine pronouns. We want to talk about the female pronouns. We've talked about they, and I have things about Jesus and then the Holy Spirit. But I wanted to pause sort of before we get on to that for today, because this weekend, or was it last weekend? I don't know when it was. Maybe a week ago, I think it was. I was in Seattle officiating a wedding, and I have this really good friend that I haven't seen in a very long time. I used to know him. So my friend Nicole, her daughter got married, and then her sister's husband is my friend, and he is an Episcopalian priest. And years ago, when I was at Nicole's house, we used to all have Thanksgiving dinner together. And when I was at her house for Thanksgiving, um, at that time, I think I was at Rock Harbor, but it maybe wasn't. I can't recall because Chip was born, so maybe I can't remember. But either way, I'd finished seminary, and he said to me, "Well, why isn't that you don't preach?" And I was looking at him kind of like, well, obviously, like, why are you asking me that? It's obvious because I'm a woman. I don't preach. And we kind of got into this discussion, and he really like, and I don't know if he would say, he later was like, I'm sorry, it was it was kind of direct, I guess is a really good verb for it, but that's who he is. But he was kind of poking at these things, and he was like, that I can't believe that you think God is that small, and like different things like that. And I remember at the time being so shocked and saying to somebody, I can't believe he said that, because we all know that Episcopalians are like barely Christians. That's what I believed, because I thought that the only way was this evangelical way that I had. So this past weekend, we were in Seattle, and it was the day after the wedding. We hung out at the wedding, and we were all sitting around this fire pit, and we start talking again. And he was telling me the story, and we started reminiscing about how much has changed and how much our thoughts have changed and our beliefs have changed over the past decade. Is like really the last time that I sat down with him in a personal setting. And he was discussing that sometimes he'll say things he believes now, or he'll think things. And he's like, and I always look around and I'm like, is the lightning bolt coming? Is that blasphemous? And we were laughing about that, but I think it's really true. When we evolve, or when we have turned the gem, or when we start going, oh, I wonder if this is different than I thought it was, a lot of times we can have that feeling, whether or not we actually believe that like somebody's gonna hurt us, or like lightning strike us for having a wrong idea. I don't know about you, but I can sense sometimes inside of me kind of like, am I allowed to think that? Am I allowed to do that? I had a great professor in seminary, and we were discussing something in the Bible. And I said, well, what do you do with the fact that here I can't even remember the topic, and I wish that I could, but it was a kind of an outlier topic. And I'm like, what do you do the fact here? And I think it maybe was women in ministry, that, Paul is acting like women can't preach. And he was like, well, what do you mean? What do I do with it? And I'm like, well, what do you do with that? Because obviously you believe he can. And my professor was like, oh, well, I just disagree with Paul. And I remember being like, what? You're allowed to disagree with Paul? I was like so shocked on it. And he was like, Bonnie, the point of everything that is here is that Jesus is Lord. That like this is about God's story. And Paul's opinion on these things I can disagree with and still believe the main thing. And I remember being shocked and like afraid of that type of freedom. And so I wanted to talk about that, and what maybe you and I have grown to believe, the word often used for a wrong belief, or for not being reverent enough, I guess, is well, I guess there's two. You can be called a heretic, which I have many times, or you can be called a blasphemer, which is like you and I have learned that to be taking. I'm sorry that this thing keeps moving. I don't know how to fix it. I'll try to stay as still as possible so that this isn't like a Blair Witch sermon where it's like this thing moving around. Anyways, but a like to be blasphemous. So I look it up and I'm like, okay, well, what is the actual definition of blasphemy? And it's the act of insulting, mocking, or showing lack of reverence for a deity. In the Christian religion, we have been taught taking God's name in vain would be blasphemous. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because we're talking about God's name when we talk about the pronouns, right? When we're talking about the pronouns for God, this is what we're doing. And so I want to ask the question, like, are we okay with this to do it? Is it blasphemous? Should we be looking over our shoulder? Like, what does all this mean? So, when you and I were little, we probably learned, or at some point in our Christian journey, even if it wasn't when we were little, the Ten Commandments, right? And it's such a trip, because that was, I think we had to memorize that for Sunday school. And there's all these, like, I still remember the song. I'm not going to sing it for you, but I recall the Ten Commandments song. There's all these little things that stick in my head. The other day, my daughter said, how do you spell success? And I said, it just came out of my mouth. And I also can't believe this is a song, but I was like, J-E-S-U-S. That's the way to spell success. That was a song I learned. And that's also not the correct spelling of success. And my husband's like, what? So I had to like fix it. But there's all these things that stick. They are really stuck in there. And so the Ten Commandments, do not take the Lord's name in vain, is one of them. So we have learned that saying, oh my God, or, saying Jesus Christ, or if you are really mad or upset or whatever, even God damn it, is like horrible, right? Is blasphemy, is taking God's name in vain. And I grew up with that knowledge. Um, my daughter, Chip, kind of, he grew up more in like the organized church than Scout did. And she doesn't have that feeling. And so she will say, oh my God. And for my husband, he's like, it's shocking to me when she says it because I was taught that like you'll go to hell for doing that. And so I was thinking about that and like, okay, how we say someone's name, God's name or anyone's name, does actually hold a lot of power. That's really true. So it's not necessarily our best way to express ourselves by saying like, oh my God, or things like that. Like there probably are just like more creative phrases that actually convey what we mean. But even my name, people have said my name in a way that feels like a kindness or feels like a hug or your name, right? And I'm sure we've all heard our names be said in a way that doesn't invoke respect or kindness. If you're in trouble or someone doesn't like you, or you can almost hear your name coming off as sour off of someone's mouth sometimes, right? So there is an aspect in which we should be reverent in the way that we say God's name, but I would suggest that saying oh my God is like the least of our worries. Like that's actually not what it means to be blasphemous. So there was a period, obviously, in the Old Testament when, Moses asks God what God's name is, and God says, I am who I am. God doesn't even want to tell Moses the name. Part of it is probably because it's like everything when I once I tell you my name, it takes this whole mystery of me and whittles it down to this tiny thing. But also, once we know someone's name, you have the ability to misuse it, right? So there is this feeling when we read the Hebrew scriptures that there's a vast like mystery of God because we don't know God's actual name. We have names that people call God, but we don't know God's actual name. It's revealed then, and we have Jesus, and that certainly is sometimes now used in vain. So what I want to propose is that it's not really about how we say the name, although it can be for sure. I would suggest based on based on years of studying it and also like watching the way our language has evolved and the way we say things, that blasphemy isn't so much saying the name of God like, oh my God, or something similar, but it's when we assign something to God that doesn't belong to God, that doesn't represent who God is and whose character, and the character of God. So, whenever we say that something is done in God's name that really has nothing to do with love, kindness, feeding the poor, helping those in need, but has to do with hate or excluding people, that is taking God's name in vain. So, it's about speech, but it's also very much about action. So I have this great memory, and I remember at the time, like not really understanding it, but also feeling like, ugh, by it. Tony Campolo said this great line one time. He said, he actually, I think, said it a few times, but he's very famous for it. He would get up and he'd start speaking or preaching, and he would say this. He'd say, I have three things I'd like to say today. First, while you were sleeping last night, 30,000 kids died of starvation or disease or malnutrition. Second, most of you don't give a shit. And third, what's worse is that you're more upset with the fact that I said shit than with the fact that 30,000 kids died. And I think that is so true on so many levels. When we say, oh, we just can't say God's name like this in this very narrow view, what happens is that for many Christians, is that they actually don't care what's being done in God's name, just as long as we didn't say, oh my God, while doing it. When it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, and that's the whole reason we're looking at, is God non-binary? I saw this great post and it said this. It said, I want to remind you that Pride Month doesn't exist to make your kids gay. It exists so that it exists. Oh gosh, I didn't look it up and I should have because I wrote it down, but I don't think it makes as much sense anymore. Okay, reminder that Pride Month doesn't exist to make your kids gay. It exists so that it exists for making, that's it. It exists for making gay kids not dead. Meaning, the reason why we're even talking about this is because there's an entire section of society that has been labeled excluded, that has been labeled othered, and that are dying because of it. So when we assign things to God that don't belong to God, that is blasphemy. So this is very obvious right now in our nation when we see the Secretary of Defense cite Psalm 114 to justify the bombing of Iran. They took scripture and they took the war and they said, this is what God would have us do. They've assigned all of those deaths to God. That is blasphemy. Killing somebody is never a part of who God is, especially when it's othered, especially when it's this nation against this nation. So that is an obvious way in which we go, okay, no, yeah, that is blasphemy. But here's the thing, that's not obvious to everyone. It's obvious to us in this room because we have conversations on it, because we're willing to do the work to dig in, we're willing to look it up, we're willing to ask questions and look at various viewpoints. But the truth is the vast majority of Christians and the vast majority of the American people still believe that blasphemy is only in the name. So they don't care who is hurt, who is outlier, as long as we didn't say, oh my God. If I want Chip to understand something that I feel like he's not understanding, I will work very hard to come up with a soccer metaphor for him to see what I'm saying. There is a very, very, very important thing we must do when we're like approaching these topics with others, and that we have to sometimes speak their language. So I'm going to come up with a soccer metaphor about offsides or something similar when I'm trying to get Chip to understand an important concept, and he gets it very quickly. Oh, right. I'm speaking his language. This is like, you guys are going to be like, what? But we have this thing where I try very hard. I cook almost every meal we have. I try really hard to be like, I've had to let it go because it's not sustainable. Speaking of not sustainable things, this is one of them. To make all of our meals very healthy and very good. And there was a few years ago, this point in our marriage where I'm like, I can't do this. You need to take on a meal. And so my husband was like, amazing. And I think he went and like got In-N-Out. And I was like, I actually love In-N-Out and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But at the time I was so irritated because I was like, no, I'm trying to do all this stuff. And then he just got In-N-Out. And I kept explaining that to him and he kept not understanding what I was talking about. So I was like, I will get back to you. I'm going to find a metaphor and I'm going to get back to you. Well, we have these cars and he doesn't like to take the car through the car wash because he thinks, and I don't know if it's true or not, I don't care enough to know, that the car wash will scratch the paint. So he doesn't do that. So I came back to him like 3 days later and I'm like, I figured it out. I'm like, when I cook all the meals and then you go to In-N-Out, that's the exact same thing as when you hand wash the car and then I take it through the car wash. And he was like, I get it now. And honestly, it flipped, right? So to me, that metaphor means nothing. To him, he was able to place it. So when we are having these conversations, the reason why it matters, although I believe, okay, so let me get this right. Although I believe that taking God's name in vain has much more to do with what we do and how we assign things to God versus just the language of God's name or pronouns of God, we are dealing with a much bigger culture that believes the opposite, that is set and very programmed to believe a very narrow view that, like, well, as long as you just don't use God's name wrong, you'll be fine, right? So if we want to see the needle move, if we want to have conversations, then we have to kind of start from the inverse and go, okay, then if you believe the name of God is so important, then I'll start there, which hopefully will get your attention, and then we can have a wider conversation. So, using they pronouns for God, or she, or he, signals to the listener or to the person that we believe and we are assigning diversity and multitudes and celebrating that as an aspect of God and assigning that to God. When we do that, we are assigning everybody that falls in that category. So here's the thing. I think separation of church and state is one of the most important things. In Texas, it's like a huge deal. They've recently put up the 10 Commandments in the kids' classroom, which I'm like, if you're gonna do that, where's the where's the list from all these other things, right? Like, so that bothers me. And they want to vote, I think, on teaching Christian theology in part of like a history classroom without teaching the other things. So I believe it's really important. I don't love, and I never have loved, bringing politics into churches. And when you have somebody standing, a politician standing in front of the nation, bringing church into politics and assigning things to God that do not belong to God, saying this nation is God's nation as if it's more than anybody else, then I sort of have to reroute and go, okay, well, we have to talk about that, right? So when we use they pronouns, what we are saying is we actually believe that God's super diverse. We believe that God is diverse, and therefore diversity belongs to God. This is not a God that is only male, only white, only Christian, only American. This is not a God that is like fitting in these tiny, tiny boxes. We are going, hey, wait a second. We actually believe something different. 36% of LGBTQ plus seriously considered suicide in the past year, and 1 in 10 attempted it. LGBTQ youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than other youth. And it happened every 45 seconds at an estimate of 1.8 million between the ages of 13 and 24 of LGBTQ youth consider suicide each year, every 45 seconds. So I look at that. It is very easy for us to say, hey, the bombing in Iran was wrong. It's wrong to say that Muslim people aren't made in the image of God. That's wrong. We believe everybody is made in the image of God. So we kind of can look at that and say, hey, we actually see why that's not correct because war isn't right. I would argue that it's so imperative that we use these different pronouns for God because we are signing diversity, because we're also saying that here, though those are just statistics from the United States, that these are also people that Christians and majority are saying those people aren't made in God's image. Those people are not included, right? So a war overseas, that feels easy to say, hey, that's not right. But what about some of these wars that are taking place?
We can't hear you all of a sudden. Uh-oh.
Can you guys hear me?
Now we do.
Amazing. Is that, thank you for telling me, is that there is our own wars right here, right? Of many different layers and many different kinds. So the question I want to ask you is this: when we're kind of evolving, we're going, is it okay to use they for God, to use she for God, to use, like, is that fine? The question I want to ask is this: what is more, or what, not even more, what fits the definition of blasphemy, of assigning things to God that aren't God? Is it using they, she, he for God? Or is it allowing LGBTQ plus youth to die because they're not accepted and calling that a part of God's plan? Assigning these LGBTQ deaths as part of what it means to be a Christian, just as people assign bombing Iran. That's the same thing. We're assigning deaths and brutality and saying you're not in based on this is who God says is in. Um, I personally believe that, obviously, I believe this, that saying they, he, and she pronouns for God is not only allowed, I think it's very necessary. We live in a nation right now that is very diverse. There are so many different beliefs of, and many of us still believe the same thing about Jesus, but there's these outlier beliefs in which we're going, oh, like, well, I could disagree with that, or I could agree with that. Um, but we live in this nation in which there are so many different types of Christians. And when we use diverse pronouns, we are reflecting that diversity. And we're saying, hey, we're all sort of at this same common goal. Just like my Bible teacher told me, and my theology teacher told me. Using a diverse set of pronouns is absolutely imperative because what it does is it assigns every type of person, every type of ethnicity, every type of gender, every type of where you live, every type of belief system, and saying everybody here is made in the image of God. It makes equality the most important thing. And in this world right now, we have way too many lines drawn. And in our nation, especially, um, Christian nationalism is on the rise and it's huge. And I, for one, don't want people believing that this is what Jesus is like. Um, I would like to share this video. It's a poem. I actually shared it with a few of you personally, but I was re-listening to it this morning, and I think it's really important. The author is named Andrea Gibson. They are non-binary. They actually passed, I think, about a year ago. And I actually had this very weird dream where it was right when, so my dad died in April, and I believe they died in May. And I had this dream, and in my dream, my dad was there. And I said to my dad, Dad, Andrea Gibson just died. Are they there? And my dad in my dream said, Yes, she's here. And I said, No, Dad, it's not she, it's they. In my dream, I was like correcting my dad's pronouns. And my dad said, Well, that doesn't make any sense because over here we're not anything. And then I woke up, which is like totally random, but I think it's an interesting anecdote. Um, and I want to show you this poem. It's called MAGA Hat in the Chemo Room. So Andrea Gibson actually died from, I think it was ovarian cancer. And this poem, I believe, really shows the other side, the other perspective. You and I can sit
Can't
here.
hear you again.
Shows what? Shows what?
Can
Now
you
you're
hear
back.
me now?
Now. Yep.
So
Yeah.
weird. Okay, I'll
Hear
lean
you
in.
the whole time. So I don't know it's something
That's
going
fine on
on.
my end too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be because sometimes if you don't have yours on mute, Steve, it can pick up other sounds and then block out the person. So you might maybe. It
That
happens
might be.
to me on FaceTime.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Steve? Yeah? Okay. Um, and I think it's really important. Like I actually really I hope it was recorded, the talking with Matt. I was out of town, so I couldn't hear it. But it's one thing for me to sit and tell you, like, hey, this means something to people who are LGBTQ plus. But because I'm not, it's kind of like, okay, great, but how does it feel to be on the other side of things? So this poem I think is super helpful. It's like a spoken word. And I want us to listen. And then I want us to just sit a minute before we can break out into groups. I don't have assigned questions, but something that arises in you of like, yeah, I think that is important, or no, I don't think it is, or I think it's okay to say that, or I don't think it is. Whatever arises in you is always welcome. But let me see if I can share because I don't. Oh, I can. Okay, so here we go. I can hear it. Thanks, Bob.
There is a man wearing a MAGA hat in the chemo room.
I can't get a good look at him because my body is plugged into a bunch of beeping machines, but my partner just tore the headphones out of my ears and said, "There is a man wearing a MAGA hat in here." I misplaced a medical marijuana edible around 3 a.m. last night, and I couldn't find it till I woke up this morning, chugged the glass of water beside my bed, and the water tasted weird. So I'm relaxed in public for the first time in my entire life. My thoughts are snuggled between stacks of jelly donut pancakes. I am right now pouring syrup over my frontal lobe, which is to say I am chill today. Chill and terribly, terribly, terribly disturbed. Who wears a Trump hat to chemotherapy? Why didn't this guy get the memo I got? The one that said don't wear political attire to chemo? Who sent me that memo? I sent it to myself. Why'd I do that? I have no idea. Every article of clothing I own rocks a political slogan. March for our lives, rest in peace, patriarchy, queerdo. My own sister makes hats with the E crossed out of the word hate to spell simply hat. And I'm not even wearing that. Like, don't hate people is suddenly too edgy of a statement for me to make. Have I become a coward? Did my radical hysterectomy make me less radical? Has facing my own mortality robbed me of my politics? Please tell me I'm not becoming one of those can't we all just get along people? The ones I absolutely blame for the fact that no one can get along. I see a Trump hat and think, when that person dies, he's not going to be a ghost, he's going to be a white sheet. I see a Trump hat and think, when I die, dude's going to show up to my funeral waving a God hates queers sign at my family's tears. That is, if he knows I'm queer. I guess there's a chance he thinks I'm straight, that I'm bald now, but in a healthier year, I'm rocking a blonde bob with face-framing highlights, that I'm a mascara model who's only temporarily used up my wishes, that I'm wearing this blush to sun-kiss my already peachy cheeks, and not because my red blood cells have been devoured by radioactive vampires and I look dead without it. Who wears a Trump hat to chemotherapy? Is Trump even allowed to tweet? Pigeons have more permission to lead the country. In the chair closest to mine, there is another man who isn't wearing a Trump hat, but who I guess is a Trump voter because he just mentioned to the nurse that he has a few Mercedes. I know there are Democrats who have a few Mercedes. I just guess they mention it less in rooms full of people fighting for their lives. The first rule of being a rich liberal, act like you don't have money. Be so down to earth, you're actually dirty. No one can pull that look off except Bernie. Everyone can see Bernie is genuinely into conserving water. Me too. This hairdo is an environmental decision, a sacrifice I made for Mother Earth because something to know about me. I am convicted of my convictions. I believe in my beliefs. I have very strong opinions about my very strong opinions, so strong that if you say I can't take my politics to the afterlife with me, I'll say, well, that's not true, because my politics aren't my politics. My politics are my soul, and I'm not going anywhere without my soul, and that guy's politics aren't his soul. I don't think souls have machine gun collections. That guy's politics are more like his insides or his hangnails or his spit. I want to say you can't take your spit to the afterlife with you, not even to hell, but he doesn't think he's going to hell. He thinks I am. He doesn't know I'm going to show up to heaven just to see Jesus standing outside the pearly gates with a sign that says gays not welcome, and God and the clouds above him laughing like an ethereal sixth grader saying, we're just kidding. We're just kidding. Look, we made the pearly gates rainbow for you. Look, we made chips and hummus. Oh my God. How'd you know the queers love chips and hummus? Because I'm God. Oh my God. Is it true you're letting all the non-binary people in first? Yes. Oh my God. That's why you call it the Holy Trinity and not the Holy Binary, isn't it? Here's what's true. Here's what's true. I don't wear political attire to chemo because I desperately want this room to be a country where no one looks at me and identifies me as their enemy. I want to feel what I rarely feel outside of here, that everyone is rooting for me to survive, even MAGA hat guy. I want him to want me to live so long I could walk over right now, tell him I had to have my ovaries removed, and he'd be so kind. He'd say, Andrea, you can absolutely have one of mine. Just here, have it. There is a land that free somewhere. We just think believing in it is a child's prayer, something you only let yourself want when you don't yet know this world. But if that land can't exist in this room where everyone's being told they could die soon, how will it ever happen out there when everyone thinks they have so much time to kill, to slaughter? Mercedes guy has a daughter who loves him. I can see it in his eyes. And MAGA hat man has an angst inside him I recognize from all the times I had a pain so deep I thought peace was shallow and blame was the only way to dig it out. That kind of digging, it hurts like hell. It's the opposite of living, hoarding ideas that are so wrong they chase the soul out of the body that believes them. When you're there, you think you know everything and you can't be convinced you don't. Something I don't know right now, I don't know. I'm going to keep coming here week after week after week. I'm going to keep seeing these guys week after week after week, and then one week I won't. Their chairs will be empty, and I'll have no words for the feelings inside me. I'll only have tears that I will struggle and struggle to explain to anyone outside of this place, because everything in my politics knows the middle ground is where this earth will go to die. But when anyone in this room leaves this world, part of me does too. I feel it in every cell of me now that I am not a me. I am one eyelash on the eye of humanity, holding on for dear, dear life, trying to get the eyelashes beside me to look in the right direction before we are all wiped off the face of this planet that desperately wants us to live of natural causes, like kindness, like caring, like knowing these bodies are clothes we are all growing out of so quickly, until one day we will be only souls who can see we always wanted the exact same wish to come true. I know we will know that when we leave this world. The planet is just so desperate for us to know it now too.
Thanks, Bob. So here's the thing, is we don't have to agree, but we do have to listen, right? Like, this is a person that's like, this is what it's like to be me and what it's like to be me in the current state of things. And when I look, sorry, that just like gets me every time. Because when I look at Jesus and I look, like I wrote this down, I've heard you all say it a million times, but in the statement of faith for Vox, when it says the full and final picture, when I look at Jesus as the full and final picture, is any time someone said, hey, wait, this is what it's like to be me, he stopped and listened and he helped and he assigned things to himself, such as inclusion and healing, as restoration and bringing everybody in. And so that's why we're doing this and why it's important and why we assign things to God that are true of God, like kindness and love and inclusion. So I'm just going to pray for us and then we can talk in our groups. And God, thank you for your multifaceted diversity, that it never ends. Thank you for the example set by Jesus of loving, of caring. Thank you for the opportunity to hear from someone else. And may it compel us to be clear in our words, in what we assign to you, and also in our actions. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Okay. Are you going to break into a group there, Bob, or?
Well, what if
I'm-
we did this, why don't you all mute yourselves and, take whatever 10, 15 minutes or so, and then we'll just kind of stay here online and talk here. Does that sound good?
That sounds good.
That sound good, everybody that's here?
We're back anyway, so. Fun.
Oh. And you're, oh, did you unmute the TV too?
Yeah,
No.
I did.
they just put the next slide up.
Yeah, but Bob.
They're just getting it set up for the next reading, I think.
All right. And we have the final reading. And this is from new revised standard
Yep.
version.
The voice of my beloved, look, he comes, leaping upon the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Look, there he stands behind our wall, gazing in at the windows, looking through the lattice. My beloved speaks and says to me, arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. For now the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree puts forth its figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away.
All right, very good. And now we have the benediction, I know. And I'm not sure who's doing that. So Jonathan, okay, great.
You want to conclude it?
Or Johan.
May God's Spirit surround you and those whom you love. Rest now in that calm embrace. Let your hearts be warmed and all storms be stilled by the whisper of his voice.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Oh, here we go.
Good talk. Best gratitude.
Best gratitude.
Jester sounds loaded.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Move away.
All right.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Changes race and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like just